Hello, how are you doing? Welcome back to Confident Business English. If you're a senior manager and you work in an international company, you already speak English, you already need it to communicate, but you lack confidence, perhaps overall or with certain skills, this is the podcast for you. My name is Anna, I'm a neurolanguage coach, and I work with senior managers just like you from all around the world every single day in my coaching business. This podcast then is an opportunity for me to share with you my guidance, recommendation, and tips as if you were one of my clients. I want you to think about this almost as a training program that you do every single week rather than just a traditional podcast. The season of the podcast generally runs from September to July. Therefore, while we're on this little in-between section, I wanted to focus on something a little bit different. The new season will kick off again on the 16th of September, 2026, so just in a couple of weeks' time. Really looking forward to that and bringing you something different and fresh, but also the content that you know and love, which is focused on what are the problems that really matter to you when you're communicating in English at work. But for these episodes, which I've labeled the confidence sessions, I really wanted to break down what confidence actually is. And how to help you build it, of course, right? I'm basing these episodes on a very useful book called How Confidence Works by Robertson. This really breaks down confidence, the science behind confidence. Alongside that, I'll also share my insights and experience that I have from coaching clients. The reason why I wanted to do this is because you do spend a lot of your time and money trying to get more confidence. So surely it's worth understanding it. And I don't mean just a fluffy explanation that you've all heard before. No, I mean really breaking it down. What is it? If you go back and listen to the last two episodes, I've already started to explore this a little bit further. So if you want to start there, great. I will do a quick refresh here as well. So, got my little notes here on my phone because I was writing this episode actually when I was on the train to Barcelona. By the way, the trains here in Spain are just another level compared to in the UK. If you've ever had the unfortunate experience of taking a regional train from London to Manchester, you will appreciate what I mean. Just super nice, smooth, the seats are lovely, everybody's got a seat. Anyway, I digress. First thing on my list here is remember that confidence isn't actually the end goal, right? You might say to me, well, Anna, I really want to build my confidence. But it's not the confidence that's the thing that you want. It's what you get from having more confidence. Does that make sense? It's really important to outline that. There's a saying in sales, I'm not sure if I mentioned it on the other episodes, but it's sell the destination, not the plane. And in this case, it's also like focus on the right goal. Confidence is not the goal. It's what confidence is able to bring you, which could be many different things. And I invite you to reflect on that. What would having more confidence mean for you? What would that allow you or enable you to do that you feel you can't at the moment? For example, it could be that you want a promotion, for example. And then, of course, you can take it further and you can say, well, you want the promotion because you want a better life, you want a more secure financial future, or you want a more interesting and rewarding role. It really depends on the person. I'm thinking about a specific client here that really wanted to raise their profile globally, particularly within the United States team. This was partly because they had a longer term vision, let's say 3 to 5 years down the line. They had their eye on a role that they were interested in, but ultimately the people in the US are the ones that are really deciding who goes forward for promotion or not. So they really needed to raise their visibility because they weren't speaking up as much as they would like to in meetings. So an increase in confidence enables them to speak up more in meetings, which enables them to have a better shot at being promoted and hopefully be in a role that they're really interested in the future, more financial stability, security, more opportunities to travel and do things that they love, etc., etc., etc. So there is a really big tangible benefit of having more confidence, right? Ultimately, it could be more money in your pocket. It could mean getting more revenue for your company. There are some really tangible benefits, as well as that intangible one, which is just you feel better. You don't feel so anxious. Speaking in English is not taking up so much of your mental energy. So that's really my first point that I invite you to think about today, which is what would more confidence enable you to do that you can't do now? And that really tells you what's the ultimate goal. Having more confidence is not the ultimate goal. It's what confidence allows you to do. Next, I'd just like to do a very quick refresh on some of the things that came up in the other episodes. And this is where we're really looking at the information in this book, how confidence works. By the way, it's not a promo, it's not an ad. I bought this book with my own money months ago. It's been sat on my shelf. I've been reading through it several times. You can read it if you want to, but you certainly don't have to. I'm going to summarize some of the key points here, what I feel are the key points. Confidence is a belief that you can do something, action, skills, tasks. You could be confident in one thing and not confident in another thing. You might even find that actually within English, you're like, yeah, I can have conversations with people. I don't really lack confidence there. But when I have to give a presentation in front of 10 people in a meeting room, yeah, I lack some confidence. Another way that it's described is that confidence is a bridge into the future, into the uncertain future. And the author here argues that there's many amazing things in history that never would have been done if people hadn't been confident, if they hadn't thought, okay, the chances that we'll succeed are high. I'm going to take a bit of a risk here. I'm going to move forward and take action, even though the future is uncertain. They also mentioned there's a slight delusion in that as well. We might touch on that later. The brain is also a predictability machine. So when you're doing a task, it's essentially predicting and asking itself, what is the chance that I'm going to be successful doing this task? If the answer to that is high, you've got evidence to back it up, you've done it before, you're going to feel more confident. If you don't have that evidence, if you don't feel like you're going to be successful, that's when you're going to lack confidence, right? It's really not rocket science, I guess. But also changing the variables here, I find this interesting. You can feel confident giving a presentation in English one-on-one, but as soon as you start changing the variables, like giving it in front of a group, that changes things, right? And the predictability machine then has to do a new calculation. Not so sure about this one because I haven't done it before. I don't have a lot of evidence to back it up. I don't know if I'm going to be successful, right? Which is where practice comes in. If you practice something, you repeat it, you iterate it, you've got the evidence there that you can do it, which is going to help you feel more confident. Challenges have to be the right size. It needs to be challenging enough so that it stretches you, but still within the realms of what you feel at that time is possible, and that the likelihood that you're going to be able to do it is successful. For example, I have a client whose longer term goal, although I say midterm, because I want to try to encourage them to really move that forward, is to give keynote speeches in English at conferences. That's a big step for this individual in question because at the moment they are not giving presentations in English. They do speak English at work. They give presentations on an internal basis. But as I'm sure you could appreciate, and maybe you can see yourself in these shoes as well, it's quite different to go from giving a presentation internally and online to then standing in front of an audience of 200 people. So challenges have to be within the realm of what you feel would be successful. So, for example, it could be in this case that you start with just asking questions at the conference setting. And you repeat that several times. It could be then that you start speaking at the round tables or the workshops several times. It could be then that you start giving short presentations in a format of your choosing. It could be a public speaking club, or you could find opportunities to do that where you have to expose yourself face to face and give a talk. And so on and so on. So it's a build-up, right? If I put somebody on a stage after not practicing that at all, you might thrive, but the likelihood is you're probably going to end up going backwards because the challenges are just way too much. I know that I would feel like that if somebody said, okay, tomorrow you're going to have to give a keynote speech in Spanish in front of loads of people. Well, I haven't done it before. I don't have any evidence. I don't have any data to work on. So it feels pretty uncertain. I could pull out some courage from somewhere and I could probably do it. but it would probably be an absolutely awful experience and wouldn't make me want to do it again. And confidence is about action. So we want to try and avoid those types of experiences, even though they may happen, where it stops you doing something again. This is important to mention as well, is that courage is not confidence. This is something that came up in the previous episode. Courage is doing something despite the fact that you're really scared. We've all had those moments, right? Where you really don't want to do something. Perhaps it's speaking up in a meeting or giving a presentation in front of your English speaking colleagues. But the thing is that courage is a really energy intensive process. We don't want to have to rely on courage every single time we have to do something in English. What's better is to build up your confidence over time so that you don't have to rely on courage getting you over the line. Does that make sense? It can be very useful to push us over the edge when we need to do things, but we also don't want to rely on it continuously because that can just be exhausting. And really what you're doing, if you're always relying on courage, is you're not actually addressing the confidence underneath, in my view. Does that make sense? Moving on to another part of the book then that I wanted to cover with you today, and this is about wording. I don't want to have any spoilers here, just in case you want to read the book. He talks about a sports person who is going through a game and they were leading in the game, but then suddenly they face a setback and this seed of doubt appears in their mind. Their coach kept saying to them the same phrase, which was essentially like, you got this, you're the best in the world. You've got this, you're the best in the world. And the thing is that the sports person, which he details in this story, asked him afterwards and says, oh, thank you so much. You really believed in me. And the coach was like, well, actually, I really didn't have any idea that you were going to win or not, actually. But I just needed to give you those words to help keep you focused. This then comes into the idea of the power of words, and that by saying that phrase, what the sports person was able to do was be focused. The more you focus, the more you're able to pay attention, the more likely it is that you're going to succeed in that task. What could we take away from that? Well, you could say, okay, words are powerful tools for controlling our attention. If I can bring my attention to the task in English, that might help me be more successful at it. It could be a phrase that you say before you give a presentation. I got this. I can communicate in English. I know what my key messages are. It will be personal to you. It could also be about reframing the nervousness as excitement. I actually remember a presentation at my public speaking club, which was by a guest speaker that came in. They were talking about the fact that they don't like flying and they felt really nervous. And what they did to try to control the nerves was that when they were on the plane and they were going through quite bad turbulence, rather than saying in their head, I'm really nervous, they were like, I'm really excited. This is really fun. Now, okay, you might be thinking, that would have worked for me. Or you could say, oh, actually, that sounds like something that would help me to control my nerves before a meeting. For example, rather than saying to yourself, I'm really worried about the English presentation tomorrow, it could be, I'm really looking forward to sharing this information with everyone tomorrow. Just say that to yourself in the car. I'm really looking forward to sharing this valuable information with everybody tomorrow. Like the example before, rather than saying, I'm really, really nervous about meeting these people tomorrow, I'm really excited about finding out more about these people tomorrow or getting to know these people tomorrow. Perhaps that just does the trick to help you also feel more calm, because we know for a fact that when the brain is calmer, it's going to perform better. But also that it allows you to pay attention to things. I'm really looking forward to sharing that information tomorrow. And maybe by doing that, you have more attention, which then helps you perform the task better. I don't know. Up to you. What do you think? Is that something that you feel would be useful to you? I'm not saying that you should do it, you shouldn't do it. I'm putting it out there and you can choose what you want to do with that. All right, let's leave that there. I've still got some notes of some things that I want to talk to you about, so we're going to pick this up in the next episode. We're going to talk about how your brain does when things go better than expected or worse than expected. And we're also going to talk about this terminology, mental backpacks, which is something I mentioned before, which are things that can actually knock your confidence. See you in the next one. Don't forget the new season is going to be starting on the 16th of September 2026. Really looking forward to that. But if not, I will speak to you next week. All right, take care. Bye-bye.